Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear episode 330, part of the CLNS Media Network. If you have time, please subscribe to our Bruins Rinkside YouTube channel, where you can have pretty much daily content between Poke the Bear, Bruins Beat with Evan Marinofski, our good friend, Pucks with Haggs, Bear with me with Joey Capone. We have you covered every step of the way this Bruins offseason going into the 2025-26 season. So please follow along with us over at YouTube. And if you don't like YouTube, you don't want to see my face, don't want to see Evan's face, anything like that. We know everyone wants to see Ty. Everyone loves seeing Ty on camera.
No.
If you don't want to do that, you can follow along over at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. So please follow us on all channels for all of our stuff as part of the CLNS Media Network. My name is Conor Ryan. And once again, we are joined by Ty Anderson, 95. What's up, Ty? How you doing?
What is going on today? How are we doing?
Ty, I got to tell you, a little bleak right now on the Boston sports landscape. Celtics got smoked in New York. Wasn't great. Looking like a long season for them, which really sucks. Again, this is a hockey podcast, but Boston and basketball is a lot better, and the Celtics are a legit contender. We'll see what happens, but kind of sucks right now. And also the Red Sox just like flat out suck. I thought we were going to have a fun summer, Ty. Shame on me, I guess, because my God, that team, ass.
Yeah, they're not great. The Celtics, I mean, it's kind of pick your poison, right? Like in terms of like, would you rather them have lost Game 5 in their own building, or is it better when it's away from your home building? I always feel like, as annoying as it is, I would rather lose on the road than lose at home. It's just something about it feels a little bit more like expectant might be the word. Where
what are you
like,
gonna do?
You shouldn't win. You should lose on the road. That's how the NBA playoffs typically are. So, like, there's that part of it. Or I'm happy it didn't happen in Game 5. But yeah, it sucks to lose to the Knicks. It sucks to lose to New York in general, like in anything. That's like one of the more sneaky, annoying series I think in the history of like this recent era of Boston Bruins hockey was the 2021 against the Islanders. What a sneaky, horrible team to lose to. Just terrible.
Yeah. And also it's like, the Knicks fans are annoying, right? But like, that's a pretty fun team to watch, the Knicks. Like, they're gritty. They got a lot of guys that can step up. If you're an Islanders fan repping about your boring ass team that no one in the NHL likes, there's no one who's like becomes a neutral fan. It's like, well, I'm going to get into, how about this Islander? Oh, they won 4 cups in the, oh my God, they are boring as fuck. Like, no, there's no one who reps the Islanders unless you want to see poor Matthew Schaefer on that team this year. But he'll be boring too. I think it's like a requirement is you have to be the most boring player possible to play for the New York Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the worst case scenario, was them winning the first overall pick. Like, what a waste. What a waste.
Not great.
It only would have been worse if like they win the Gavin McKenna sweeps. Then it's like, this sucks now. The league doesn't want this.
So I get ready to become a 60-point checking forward, buddy. What are you, the Bruins? So anyway, I digress. We're not looking at the Islanders. We're not breaking down basketball or anything, thank God, because we're already sad enough. Instead, we're looking at the Bruins coaching search, Ty. And the latest news is really, there isn't a whole lot of news. There's been more movement across the NHL, right? Vancouver's got their coaching vacancy filled up. You've got Rick Tocchet going to the Flyers. You've had reports from, Frank Saravalli saying that Jay Woodcroft, the former Oilers head coach, is a leading candidate for the Bruins. Elliot Friedman has been on a couple different podcasts and pretty much has had the diplomatic answer of who haven't the Bruins talked to. So it seems like they are casting a pretty wide net. Where do you stand, one, on Woodcroft and just where they overall seem to be in a bunch of different directions as to who they're prioritizing right now?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. Woodcroft is a guy that I don't think you can hold his resume against him too harsh, in the sense that, like, pretty sure every time he came up short in Edmonton, they lost to the team that won the championship. So there's that part of it. But at the same time, however, like, that's not a pick that's going to get your fan base energized. It's just not. And that shouldn't be the goal. I understand that. But, like, I don't look at Jay Woodcroft and go, oh, wow, this is an electric coach who's going to bring in a whole bunch of systems and structure that is going to be, lights out of this world, awesome kind of stuff. And why I feel that way is that I'm not going to lie to you. I have not enjoyed watching the Edmonton Oilers. I do not enjoy their product. I do not enjoy their system, their structure. I feel like their system and their structure a lot of times has been survive the minutes without 97 and 29 on the ice. And then when they're out there, win the game. That feels like a little bit what the Bruins tried doing a year ago with 88 and didn't really work out. So I'm a little bit reluctant there when it comes to buying in on a guy like Jay Woodcroft. I also feel personally that it's time to go younger. It's time to go more inventive, someone different. Like if you want to be the Capitals, right? And that's been kind of the blueprint here of like what you can be, a short retool and then you're right back to it with your core. Then look what the Capitals did. The Capitals fired Peter Laviolette and brought in Spencer Carberry. They went younger. They went more inventive. They went more, forward thinking than anything else. And so that's where I want to lean with this hire more than a guy like Jay Woodcroft, who I'm not holding his experience against him, but I'm saying, is that experience enough to make you go, oh yeah, you want that over perhaps the hot name on the market right now?
Yeah, and I think when you're trying to read the tea leaves and trying to piece together what the Bruins are thinking, which is easier said than done, right? Because they've run a pretty tight ship. So there's only so much we can really glean as opposed to, I think, maybe we envision what we project. But I think if you are trying to find some crumbs of information, I do think the fact that the Bruins have been pretty quiet, you're not hearing a whole lot from them during this initial kind of run on coaches where it's been a lot of the established guys, right? The Talkett's, the Sullivans, people like that. The fact that they are kind of waiting and seeing where some of these teams that are in the NHL playoffs are and kind of biding their time. Like I imagine they're still interviewing guys that are out there, right? They're interviewing Woodcroft, they're interviewing Sturm, who Friedman said is a candidate as well. But the fact that they haven't moved on anyone yet, it does seem to give you, I don't know if hope is the right word, but just it seems like their line of thinking is they still want to see what, a guy like Mitch Love, whose season just ended with Washington, could provide. He's a guy that I think just turned 40. The same thing with the Dallas Stars with Misha Donskov. Like, as much as I think we keep on talking about these younger coaches, and I think there's a lot of appeal to them, it does seem like from the Bruins' actions that they're echoing the same approach. Doesn't mean they're going to sign those guys, but it does seem like they want to leave no stone unturned and seeing what these younger guys still in the playoffs can kind of pitch for their vision for this team before they decide to, maybe they pivot back to Sturm or Woodcroft or anything, but they're not moving ahead without kind of getting the full breadth of the guys that are out there right now.
Yeah, and that's what they should be doing. Like, I think we probably agree. I mean, geez, but to your point, who knows with this front office? I think this is probably going to be the last hire that Cam Neely and Don Sweeney are allowed to make, barring something completely catastrophic or unpredictable. This is going to be their final coaching hire, and you got to get it right. It's similar to the number 7 overall pick. Like, you got to get it right because you're not going to pick this high again. Like, the team might, but you won't. Like that. That's kind of how I think that's how it looks right now. And so, with that in mind, like they got to nail this pick. And this is where I've sort of wondered, and I've talked about this, I've written about this. Like, does what's best for the Bruins also jive with what's best for Don Sweeney and Cam Neely? Like, this is a franchise that has oftentimes, when faced with something that can be legacy defining, so to speak, or, reflects on them in a certain light, they opt for what is safest. And so by that logic, Jay Woodcroft is safest. He's had NHL coaching experience. His teams have gone on deeper playoff runs. Like, so he is safe. But is he a coach that you think is here with the Boston Bruins for 6 or 7 years? That has to be the goal for the next hire. I understand how this league is. I understand how that coaching shelf lives have never been shorter. But you should make this next hire with the hope that this guy is the head coach for 6 or 7 years. Like that's what you want to hope for. But again, is hiring the safest guy going to give you a 6 or 7 year window? Like, that's something that I don't know. I don't know right now. And so that's kind of where the Bruins are. And, this front office, like they should look younger, to your point, they should look who's out there and who can be that pillar. But is that the safest call? No, it's not, because that's a new head coach or that's a first time head coach in the NHL. So this is the part that, like, I'm I'm a little bit nervous about. I got to admit, I'm a little bit nervous about as a Bruins observer, as somebody who wants his team to be good, to be back in playoff contention, be back in the mix. Like, I just like, are they on the same page? We've talked about this last month when they had that press conference, or early this month, whatever it was. Like, it's kind of a weird mix right now. Ownership wants to be back in the playoffs. The team president loves his GM. The GM is the final year of his contract and missed the playoffs. The last time that the GM of this team, missed the playoffs in ugly fashion, got fired. So the rope can't be that long, right? You'd think. So what are the goals? Is it just get back in, or is it build a sustainable model, right? And so it's just a weird mix right now with this franchise. It makes it so hard, to your point, to read where they're going to go with this.
Yeah, and it's weird too, right? Because let's say they do hire a Donskoff or a Love or someone like that. Wouldn't you think that would almost afford like Sweeney, the front office, more rope or more leeway? Where like instead of it being like Laviolette or like a guy that you like, we know if you're going to hire a retread established coach, you're like, oh, they're going for the 1 year bump, get in the playoffs, and then go from there. Like it's a very short term thing. That's what you assume. That's kind of what the track record has been with a guy like Gallant or Laviolette or someone like that. And it all goes to hell afterwards. Let's say you bring in someone like a Donskoff per se, and barring him being like a complete disaster, like assistant coach to the NHL to head coach and isn't ready for it, and things just go completely off the rails. Let's say the Bruins, their younger guys develop, they take a step forward, they're in the right direction, and they come up just short of missing the playoffs. But they've got, 90, high 80s, low 90s, come up just short, but it looks like they're in the right direction. And you feel good about, especially next year, where they're going to be. Wouldn't you think the front office, by signing off on like a guy like Donskoff or Love, who are younger but unproven, they're kind of being like, all right, we want to make the playoffs, but as long as this young coach is showing that he can really build with this team and feels like we're on the right track, and especially next year we're ready to roll, wouldn't you think that would kind of suffice and placate the front office, being like, all right, we're in the right spot. We're moving forward. We've got a young coach. We've got a young core that's really making strides with our coach this past year. Sweeney and guys, like, you guys are all good. I do wonder if it kind of signals from like the ownership that if they do get a younger coach, it's like, all right, they are okay with preaching a little bit of patience. Now, again, if they are the 5th worst record in the league and all the young guys suck and the players aren't, getting the message from the new head coach, then you got to clear house again, right? Like there is that risk, but it does feel like you are giving your front office and your team a little bit more leeway, a little bit more rope if it is a younger coach, that you're playing the long game, the strategy where you're trying to build, as you said, a sustainable team for the future, as opposed to that 1, 2, 3 year bump just to get in the playoffs, get those playoff gates. It just seemed like the safer the better option is going for the younger coach that has a higher upside.
Yeah, I agree. And I believe I'm so sorry to have ever asked a question. I forget who asked it, but somebody asked Charlie at that press conference, like, if the team is not a playoff team and they come to you and say, hey, it's best to sell again, would you listen? And he said, yeah, I mean, if that's what they think is best for the team, we'll listen. I got to throw a challenge flag. I just do. I got to say that I'm not going to believe that until I see it. It's similar to when they sold. I didn't believe it until I saw it. And then we saw it the final, 3 or 4 days of the deadline. They started selling. And you're like, okay, now I'm seeing it. Like now it's, so this is going to hang over the franchise. It just is. It's going to hang over the franchise until they make the hire, until we see the team, until the trade deadline happens, like, and where they are. Like if they're where they were at, let's say they're a little closer, right? Let's say they're a little bit closer at this next season's trade deadline than they were this year. Let's say they're 2 points out of it, right? But it's a crowded field, all that. It might be best to sell again. It might be best to sell, like especially with the 2026 draft. Everyone's talking about that. More cracks like Evan McKenna, the better. But I don't think ownership will sign off on that, even if the coach is like showing you enough. Like I feel like the mandate is playoffs. I just do. And
they do have an extra first round pick. They got capital.
They do. And
could get another first, but
it's such a weird dynamic right now that makes it so hard to project where they're going to be, forget a year from now, 3 months from now, 4 months from now, what is the spending going to be like? Are they going to blow all their money in the 2025 class because they got to make the playoffs? Like it does feel like there's an element here of like, no, you got to get back to the playoffs. Like that is sort of where they are right now. And that can sometimes lead to. Sorry about that. Got muted for a second. That can lead to, some ugly signings on occasion. So I do think that the Bruins, have to keep that in mind here and resist the urge to do everything just to make the playoffs in 2026.
Yeah, it does feel like, Ty, the easiest way for this team to actually quiet all these, storylines just to be good next year. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
why does this team think of just being good next year? Which again, we're not exactly putting out of the equation, out of the question for them in terms of, especially what they do this offseason. Gun to your head, where do you feel like the Bruins are going to go in terms of the head coaching? Do you have any educated guess yet? Or are you still kind of looking at all the guys out there and not having a strong feeling one way or the other?
Sturm feels like the guy. Like something about that. Like the changing of the guard of this franchise, going back to, more Chara advice. Chara played with Sturm, knows his resume, knows what he's like as a person. This was a coach who has put Germany back on the map in terms of hockey relevancy, or put them on the map, I would say, in hockey relevancy at the national level. He comes into the Kings in 2018, 2019 as an assistant. The Kings go to him after a couple of years and they say, hey, listen, like, we like you, but we think you should go to the AHL and be a head coach there and build your resume some more that way. And he doesn't stomp his feet. He doesn't say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm here in the NHL. He goes down there. He coaches there. Like I like that sort of mentality, that mindset, that mantra, whatever you want to call it. And so I think that Sturm is a guy who, former player, international, has succeeded at the IIHF level, the NHL level. He has experience, and the AHL level, he's been a head coach. So he checks a lot of boxes, I think, for the Bruins. And so I'm leaning that right now. But, there's a lot of guys out there. There's clearly a lot of guys out there that they like. A lot of assistants that could be of note. We've talked about Donskov so many times. I don't have to talk about him again. I still like his resume. I'd like him as well, but it feels like one of those two guys, in my opinion. That's where I would go with this hire personally.
Yeah, I'd put those two guys in the mix. I still think that the links to the Bruins, and especially Sweeney with Donskov, does just seem to make a lot of sense. So I won't begrudge them for, targeting either him or Sturm. I do really like Mitch Love. I know he's not maybe getting the same hype, but he is a guy that, again, is 40 years old. Everywhere he's gone, teams have succeeded. Like, he put together 2 wagons of teams with Calgary's AHL affiliates. And then, like, you look at, he primarily works with Washington's defense, but like the amount of guys that have had like either renaissance, turnarounds, or have just really thrived with Washington on the defensive side, whether it's like, look at what Chikrin has done. Look at what Rasmus Sandin, Faravardi, like there's so many guys that are becoming like legit impactful everyday guys. And it's like, you look at a guy like that who's younger, who seems to be pretty innovative. You look at how Washington plays, fire a lot of shots from the blue line, activate. They're really, if you're able to, if you bring in Mitch Love and it solves and gets Mason Lohrei playing at a high level, like that's already a win in of itself. But he does seem like a guy that is going to be a head coach one day. And I wouldn't be surprised if they take a close look at him as well. And I think kind of that trio, right? Sturm, Love, Donskov. It means they're going to hire like Jay Woodcroft, like probably right after we're done recording this. But I do think if you look at some of these younger guys, I just think the ceiling is a lot higher for the Bruins. And I think it also affords or preaches more patience for this team, which I think has to be the right call. Like, I think we all agree this team has the means to be back in the playoffs next year. It'd be great if they were, but as long as like this new coach is really developing this new core and you feel like, all right, like this year was fun. We got younger players stepping up. You're seeing their progression, their growth, and 2026, 27 is going to be a fun year. I think you can sell that to this fan base, especially with a a coach in place that feels like he's growing with this team. So that's what I do hope the Bruins, target with their coaching hire, but remains to be seen if that is going to be the case. So we'll see what happens there.
And it's so hard, like, to get any sort of information out of the team. It's just like, it's impossible. So like, I we can't sit here and say, oh, we're hearing this, we're hearing that. If we do, it's great, but it's just so rare, right? That like, I wish I could sit here and tell you what they're prioritizing. I don't know. They won't say as much. But it does feel like they are in a spot here where, you can take a chance. Like you should be able to take a chance here versus going safe floor. Like, what's best for the organization is to take a chance. Because they do get stuck in their dinosaur way of thinking at times, and it's hurt them a lot. Like look at last year. Look at last year's offseason when they basically everyone they signed, with the exception of Elias Lindholm, they were telling you how they're great physically and how they hit and how they can instill fear in the opposition. And you watched it, you're like, oh wow, this is just a big old bucket of ass. This sucks. I think like your fans are willing to embrace change, but it's gonna start with how you change the team. And so, like, to your point, like, you can sell the fan base on something, but you gotta sell them on a vision that makes sense, right? And so that's gonna be the biggest thing with this coaching hire. I'm not saying hire the sexiest name because you're gonna win the offseason. Winning the offseason is stupid. But you got to show your fan base, because I do think that there is a bit of a fractured relationship right now between the front office and the fan base, and the ownership and the fan base. Like, you got to show them that, like, hey, we're going to change for the better here. Like to your point, that's something that I think like people want to hear, even if it's bullshit. They want to hear like, hey, we know that, like, we got to change with the times. The times are changing. We got to change with them. Like, if you do that, you're going to get some more rope than you would if you're like, no, our way is fine. You guys are all idiots. It's like, okay, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So waiting game continues for a head coaching hire. We'll keep you updated every step of the way. We're going to pivot now, looking at offer sheets and restricted free agents. Before we do that, once again, to our loyal listeners, if you can, please subscribe to the Bruins Ringside YouTube channel. We can follow all of our daily content between myself, Evan Marinofski's Bruins Beat, Pucks with Haggs, Beer with Me with Joey Capone, all that stuff. So please smash that subscribe button. And if you don't have to do that, don't smash the keyboard. I know Apple, like the tariffs, the microchips, it's the laptops are going to be too much money. Please don't smash the subscribe button. Please subscribe. One click, do that. It will help us out tremendously. And if you don't want to see my ugly face on your computer screen, because why would you? You can also follow along on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you get your daily podcasts. Thank you guys once again. Ty, looking at offer sheets. I know you penned a great story on 98.5 The Sports Hub about offer sheets, potential targets for the Bruins. Offer sheets are something that I think we always love talking about this time of year. It's great to talk about in theory. It's great to drum up the drama with it. Teams seem to rarely do it. I don't know if they're worried of, like, you go to like the league meetings and you have like your cafeteria tray and like you sit down with everyone and they all just push it's like Toby in The Office. They push his tray off the table and all leave because you stole a restricted free agent from someone. I don't really think that's the case anymore, especially after like the Blues got two awesome players off of a cap-strapped Oilers team. But I think you look at the Bruins this year where they got a lot of cap space. The free agent class isn't the best. It's pretty top heavy once you get past the first two or three guys. And you also look at the amount of other teams across the league that are staring at some pretty tough decisions cap-wise this offseason. It does feel like the Bruins are a team that should be really poised to be aggressive with trying to target and trying to find some of those RFAs that I know everyone looks at, like Matthew Nyes, who I think is a great player. I feel like for an RFA, it's almost like you have to find the next guy before the breakout. It's like, it's kind of like what the Blues did with Holloway and Broberg, two guys that, like, you like their game. I was not following along with their games all that much when they were in Edmonton, but like saw promise there. You want to sign that guy before he has his nearly 30-goal season. And it does seem like there's a lot of guys like that, whether it's a forward or a defenseman, that have shown a lot of promise. And it does feel like if you sign them and get them to put on a black and gold sweater, they can really take a big step forward next year at what could be a pretty good deal, all things considered.
Yeah, and I think for a team like the Bruins, it comes back to, like, and with offer sheets in general, right? It comes back to like, you got to make a team blink. You got to make a team go, we love this player, but do we love him that much? Yeah, like that is the science behind the offer sheet. St. Louis didn't get Broberg and Holloway last year because they just threw $8 million at them. No, they said, if we offer this amount of money, Edmonton might not match. They probably can't match. So let's strike while we can. And so it's going to be harder. I completely acknowledge with the cap rising. And a lot of these teams, that have players that you'd want to target, like they got the cap space, right? Like Anaheim has a cap space. Like they have the cap space to re-sign Mason McTavish, who's probably the sexiest RFA, not named Matty Nyes or JJ Peterka, let's just say.
Yeah.
Evan Bouchard, if you want to count him as well. But like, they also have Leo Carlson, who needs a new contract soon. They have Cutter Gauthier, who needs a new contract soon. They're going to have to sign Lucas Dostal this offseason, who had a great year, I thought, as a goaltender for them. He's the next guy once John Gibson either gets traded or moves on or retires, whatever happens there. They also have Trevor Zegras, who needs a new contract soon. He could be traded, we all know, but like Owen Zellweger needs a new contract soon. Pavel Minty fresh breath over there on the back.
I was gonna say you're starting to name guys who I have no idea who the fuck you're talking about on Anaheim.
But these are good players. These are high draft picks. They're top prospects. They're players that are starting to break through. Not everyone can make $8 million a year. It's just how it is. And the Anaheim Ducks, I don't know their finances. I gotta be completely honest. Do they have the cash flow to sign six guys to those kind of contracts?
Dude. They got that. Are
they still owned by Disney? Are they still owned?
I don't believe so, but you never know. I feel like I imagine like let's say like the Bruins like offer sheet McTavish, and like they just get like the email across like the screen. They're like, oh my god, we got to talk to the McMahon about this. It's just Mickey's in like the background. He's their capologist, just looking at it. I'm not gonna do a Mickey Mouse voice, but he's just like, no, we can't. Cut bait. We can't do this. He's just smoking a big cigar. Like he's got his red overalls on. Just no, I don't know if they still are owned by Disney, but to your point, it does feel like it's when you're offer sheeting someone, it can't be you put the terms out there and the other team's like, all right, it has to be like, fuck. All right, we have to, that's what you got to do there.
Yeah, I mean, the two examples you have are, as I just said, the Holloway and the Broberg example, and then you have the Sebastian Aho example, where Carolina went, oh my God, thank you for negotiating.
Thank you for negotiating our contract. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that was it. And so you got to target teams that, might have doubts about a player or might have contract issues or cap space issues. A guy that comes to mind there is Will Cooley with the New York Rangers. They don't have a ton of cap space. They also have to re-sign Keandre Miller or make a decision on Keandre Miller. Shesterkin's going up. Lafreniere's going up. They kept
glad they moved Jacob Trouba in that contract.
Yes,
and then
to immediately spend the money on JT Miller. And listen, the Rangers could trade Chris Kreider tomorrow and alleviate those worries. I understand that, but our team's knocking down walls right now to help the Rangers out. I mean, they've done it twice now in the past calendar year, so maybe it's happening again. But there is that part of it, right? And so I would wonder if Will Cooley could be a guy that you could target. It's almost like, all right, you have Matty Nyes, but if you can't afford a Matty Nyes, you can get a Will Cooley, similar kind of player. 20 goals, 300 hits, like not the exact same level, but if Nyes is an A, Cooley's a B. And those players have value, and so that's a guy that I think could stick out there. Luke Evangelista from Nashville, shoots the hell out of the puck. Dmitry Voronkov in Columbus, like you got some options here, man, in terms of like guys that you could in theory potentially have for mid-tier money and get the teams to sweat a little bit.
Yeah, I almost feel like if you're the Bruins, you'd almost rather try to find those kind of mid-tier guys that I think you can really unearth a lot of value over, as opposed to trying to put the Toronto in a tough spot by offering, I mean, hell, what would you actually have to offer to get Toronto to blink? Because like, I feel like they're also like, yeah, we'll let Marner go if we keep our 23-year-old 30-goal guy, right? Like, are you offering him like 9.5, 9.4, whatever is right below that other threshold? But like, or do you have to offer 9.5, give him the McAvoy contract, and you're giving up 2 firsts, a second, and a third for a guy that I really like, Matty Nyes. I think he's a really awesome player, a good playoff guy, knows for the net. you sign him, he's going to be probably a 30-goal guy here for the next 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, what do you have to pay to have the Maple Leafs willingly let him go? And is it worth like a 30-goal winger worth 2 first-round picks, a second and a third? And I believe with the draft compensation, right, it has to be your own picks. You can't be like, well, this year we'll give you Florida's and this year we'll give you Toronto's. It has to be your own draft pick. So if you like just have traded them away, you're shit out of luck. Like you can only do so much with it. So yeah, I really like him, but I feel like it's better served. You're able to, target Cooley and someone else, right? Like you mentioned, like Drew Hellison, the defenseman, who I think is not going to be the top commodity, but has all the means of being a really stable right shot D, or, Voronkov or someone else like that. It goes back to, you're trying to find essentially the next knife before he takes off. It's the same thing with like the Sam Bennett thing. Like instead of trying to sign Sam Bennett, find that next guy that the way he plays, it can translate, and over the next couple of years, he's an impactful player. Because like, I love Will Cooley. I think like if you're asking me like Bruins to-do list, like if you're going to say any offer sheet guy, I think it's Cooley, because I think floor is he is a line driving, impactful third line player, right? Skates well, he's 6'4", hits the shit out of everyone, and is a 20-goal scorer without it being like an absurd shooting outlier too. Like he's a guy that could just be a 20-goal stalwart, and hell, maybe next year at 23 years old, he's a 28-goal scorer, right? And he's a second line guy. Like there's something like that where he's a guy that if you're able to sign him for what, 4.5, like it's a second and a third or something, like is it 5 to really make the Rangers sweat, right? Like I think
he's a guy I'd be willing to go. I'd go 6. I would. Yeah. I would give up the first and the third for a guy like that. I just would. And I'm sorry to like derail you. Like I hope I didn't. No. A player who was an even strength killer a year ago, didn't really get a ton, in my opinion, when I would watch Ranger games, didn't get a ton of power play work. So 20 goals. Okay. Well, what if you give him power play work? Is he 30 now? Like, is he 30? Is he 35? And Connor, long-term need, left wing. Oh my God. Sneaky long-term need for this organization, left wing. Let's real quick. Let's run through their best left wingers right now. Morgan Geekie.
Do we have to?
Morgan Geekie, who's a right shot, by the way. Then the second best guy is who? Hustadinov, who's the center. Like that's probably where they are right now. It's such a long-term need. I would be willing to go 6 for Will Cooley. I would make the Rangers sweat, and I would say, you know what? I trust that we're not going to be a lottery team a year from now. We have the extra first-round pick, as you noted. Let's do this. Let's make them sweat. Let's take one of their best young players. I just think he's such an impactful player. Like Bruins fans are always like thirsting for like Brady Tkachuk or Tom Wilson. Like this guy might be not that level of like scorer, like perhaps, I don't know, but you want a guy who's going to bring that intensity, bring that energy. That is a sneaky under the radar kind of move that I would give up let's say the 21st overall pick. Basically, I would do it. Yeah. I would do it. I just would.
Yeah. I think honestly, like my very early look at like what I think the Bruins are going to end up doing is like, I'm going to say the Bruins sign like Besser. I think that's the guy they're going to sign as like their big free agent target. I'm not huge on that, but especially what I think the contract's going to be, but shot first guy, could be a 30-goal guy. You put him with like his buddy Casey Middlestat, maybe you get more out of Middlestat, what have you. But if you're able to get a guy like that and then get someone like Cooley on the wing, and then like you're able to, with a team that's, strapped for cash, like let's say like Mason Marshman's available for a good price because Dallas needs to shed payroll, and you get those 3 wingers, you're cooking. Like not saying you're going to win the cup, but all of a sudden you've got a middle six that's got a lot of guys that have size, have scoring touch. Like that's already 65, 70 goals right there added to this team off of just like being smart with an offer sheet, using some of your cap space and also taking advantage of teams that just need to shed payroll. Like, again, will that money all balance out? I have to do that. But just spitballing before you really dive into the nitty gritty. Like, there's a lot of ways, whether it's through free agency, whether it's through offer sheets with guys like Cooley who aren't at the top of the list. They're not Matty Nyes, but have a lot of value. and teams that just need to move assets off their books, that the Bruins have a lot of ways to just upgrade the talent level. I'm not saying they're going to, in one fell swoop be back to being a legit contender, but for as much people talk about this free agent class and it's not that deep, there's a lot of ways for this team to be really creative and aggressive to add just NHL level talent, right? Like the same thing with Cooley. Even if Cooley doesn't have another gear, he's an NHL player that, again, if he stays where he is a kick-ass third line player that is going to have like multiple good playoff runs for you, like just the way he plays. And I think there's value to that, right? So I just think you look at, especially with the offer sheets, there's a lot of guys that if you're able to be aggressive and look below the first 2-3 names, you can get guys that are going to impact this team for a long time.
You said what, adding 50 or 60 goals to your roster, basically?
Yeah.
So let's say you add those 60, right? And let's say Geeky has like let's say a 15 goal drop off. Let's just say he goes from 33 to 18, which is probably more in line with who he is as a player. I mean, if he hits 30 again, that's freaking awesome. But if he doesn't, all right, still a 20 goal guy, whatever. If you add, let's say that's 45 goals in total, right? Like, so you're adding 60, you're taking 15 away from Geeky, so that's 45 goals you've added to your team. You are already a top 10 offense in the NHL. You were 20. You had 222 goals a year ago. You add 45 to it, you're in the top 10. And this is why this is important to note, Connor, because as we've talked about on previous podcasts, the teams that were in the top half of the league in scoring last year basically all made the playoffs. The exceptions were Buffalo and Columbus. But everybody else who's in the top half of the league in scoring made the playoffs last year. This is where the game is going. You want to defend, and the Bruins have to improve defending. I will completely acknowledge that. However, defending doesn't matter if you only score 2.3 goals a game. It's just like that's the way the league is right now. You got to score goals. And so if you can add a net of 45 to your goal total, you're going to make the playoffs. You like, barring Swayman being completely broken, like, you're going to make the playoffs next year if you add that many goals to your roster, to your point.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will see how it all plays out. Again, I am Team Cooley, but honestly, there's a lot of guys that, to your point, that if they want to be aggressive and try to put the screws to some teams, I won't begrudge them for. But yeah, Cooley, I think, is at the top of my list of guy that. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say he's a guy, but like I think both of us, because we're both like numbers guys. I think we could both dive in and find guys that are like value where we're like, oh, I could see that. You know what I mean? Like they're like what
Evangelista, like just putting pucks on net. That's a guy that the same thing with, like, it's one of the reasons why like a team like Florida is so good is that they've got a great coaching staff and great system that they identify guys who are older or flawed. They're like, hey, we're going to put you in a spot where you're going to play to your strengths and you're going to succeed. I think that's what the Bruins have to do here, right? Where it's like, all right, if they can't put pucks on net. Get a guy like Evangelista or a guy like Besser, if that's who you're looking for with that money. Just put pucks on net. If, like, again, I'm not smitten with Brock Besser, but if you can tell me that he's going to be flanking on the other side of the power play with David Pastrnak, and he's going to be putting pucks on net, and he's getting set up by his buddy Casey Middlestat, like, I'm not being like, cups back on, 40 goal season for Brock Besser, but I can see it, right? And I think Evangelista is a guy that if he's the next Craig Smith coming out of Nashville and he just fires pucks on net, yeah, maybe he's a 20-goal guy. You never know, right? And so there's a lot of those guys that I'm sure, to your point, if I had like time to, and I think we probably will now that we get to the dog days of the offseason, where you can dive into 10, 15 RFAs that have something that stands out. When you do like the natural stat trick per 60 and you do the big pool and all of a sudden that guy's like 48th out of like 640 NHL players, you're like, oh, I wonder if the Bruins are also keeping tabs on these sort of things. And so, yeah, I do think that it's all about like finding out what players that are RFAs that haven't broken out yet or don't stick out from the pack, what do they do well? And it's something that you're in need of. Maybe you can coax more of that out of them on your team. And I think that's what the Bruins have to do here, because like they're not just a player or two away. But if you're able to use that cap space and add a couple of these different players, like it's almost like, would you rather put all your eggs in one basket with Matty Knives, who, again, rocks, really good player? Or would you like try to pluck Cooley and Evangelista and like Drew Hellison and these guys that maybe aren't going to cost you as much, but if you're able to get 2 out of those 3 guys, they fill up pretty important spots in your roster and have more to give moving forward. Like I think you're just so bereft of or deficient of just NHL caliber play that any one of those guys helps you out.
Yeah, and dude, I'm so happy you brought up Florida because and as it relates to all of this, because look at Florida. Florida is 1 win away. I mean, they are going to a game 7, but they're 1 win away from going to the 3rd round. How have they been able to do that? Well, it's easy to look at the top of their roster. It's easy to look at Bobrovsky, but here's something, Connor. They have 17 guys that have scored a goal for them this postseason. They have 11 guys that have scored multiple goals for them this postseason. They have the balance. They have the guys up and down their roster that are contributing. Look at Edmonton. Edmonton is now going to the Western Conference Final. Edmonton has 16 guys that have scored at least 1 goal for them this postseason. They have 11 guys like Florida that have scored multiple goals this postseason. So it is about your balance. It is about finding guys that can be on your 3rd and 4th lines or your 3rd D pairings and contribute offensively every now and then. And so that's got to be the goal for the Bruins. And, I asked Don Sweeney, like after the 1st round, I said, hey, have you noticed anything from the playoffs that sticks out to you in terms of like, you got to have this if you're going to get back to the postseason? He didn't give a ton of insight, but he did say depth scoring. He said, you got to be deep this time of year. You got to have guys contributing all across the lineup. And so, yes, I think like to our point, like you're going to look at some of those guys that, he's playing 3rd line and, Utah. But if we rate out his numbers, wow, he was top 80 in scoring per 60. He was top whatever. Like you got to wonder like if they're going to find guys like that or, he gets a good ice. One of the things I love about Voronkov is that if you look at Voronkov's, his heat map, he shoots
all red.
It's all red. And it's what's great about it is that he actually, I think he was 96th percentile, 95th or 96th percentile in terms of shots from what the NHL considers high danger. So that means that he's almost the top of the league in shots on goal from the key areas of the ice. I imagine that probably only Zach Hyman is probably better like in that regard than him. So, if you want to boost a guy, you bring that guy in. I thought Voronkov was a great complimentary winger for Kirill Marchenko, who I think is a star player. And so
also going to get paid. So same thing with the Columbus, kind of same thing with the Ducks, right? Like they got a lot of cap space, but they've got a shit ton of young players coming up that are you can't pay them all.
You can't, right? And so, like, it's about finding complementary wingers. It's about finding guys that can gel with your stars. The ones you do have, and then you kind of go from there. To your point, like Besser, like, do I love Brock Besser? No, but if he wants to come here and play with Middlestad and they can form a connection, they train together in Minnesota in the offseason, like, okay, I'm in on that. Like I've kind of seen that before with guys that you've brought in, Zaka and Pasternak and Krejci. Like, that was a great line. They're all friends. Okay, word. Let's see what it looks like.
People overlook the power of friendship when it comes to roster building, Ty. It's a very
really
slept on metric.
It is. I mean, yeah, friends per 60. I mean, mine's like dead last in the league, so I got that going for me.
Dude, that's unfortunate, but damn. But I will say, like, someone like Voronkov, I imagine you have to like probably pony up with that contract because it's still like Columbus still has money, right? You still have to make a pretty compelling case to make them, as you said, blink. But I feel like Voronkov would be like next year's Matty Nyes, who's going to have like 29. I mean, I don't even know how many goals did he even have this year. Like, did he have?
That's a great question. I wish I knew. I think he was around like 23. I want to say. I can pull this up.
I can filibuster and just keep on talking really quick as the NHL's website loads. Just one second here.
23 goals, nailed it.
23 goals and 47 points. Like, doesn't it feel like he's a guy that will be like a 30 goal guy next year, whether it's with Columbus or someone else? Like, again, it's a guy that just the way he plays. The same with like the way you watch Matty Nyes play, where he just drives to the net, like simplifies his approach offensively. And the chances and the opportunities are going to be there. So, yeah, if it's a guy like Voronkov, like we've listed 3 or 4 or 5 guys that if the Bruins get, I'd be like, love what that guy could do for this team, both for right now and even if you're, playing the long game and it's 20, 26, 27, and that's when Jake O'Brien or one of these guys is ready to roll, and you got a 30-goal guy in maybe Cooley, maybe Voronkov, like you're ready to roll, right? And you're competitive right now with a young, exciting player who, by the time that ideally your next wave of young talent arrives that you've kind of have homegrown, you've got, okay, a 26, 27-year-old prime Voronkov or prime Cooley ready to roll with a 30-year-old David Pastrnak. Like, it's a pretty good spot to be in. That's kind of where you want your whole roster to be if all things go well. So,
yeah, it all comes back to like where where do you view your own guys, right? Like where do you view like a Fabian Lysell or Dan Lushmelis, like Riley Duran? Like, where do you project those kind of guys? Because at the same time, like, you know, I listen, I don't hate a player, you know, a guy who I didn't mention who is an RFA offer sheet eligible is a guy like Noah Cates, right? Or a guy like Fabian Zetterlund. Like, those are also options. Like, in New York, Simone Holmstrom. Like, you got guys that like could be decent third liners, but like, do you want to get in the game of like spending big money on third liners? Because that's kind of, I think that's a must for your next head coach, is bringing younger players along, plugging them into third line roles, and understanding that like, no, you're going to have to contribute here, because this is the best way for us to be sustainable, is to have a rotating cast of characters that can come in, play third line, score 17 goals, 35 points, whatever it is, and kind of develop from there.
Yeah, Noah Cates, very underrated two-way defensive player. Actually, I think he would be a pretty good value pick. But to your point, how much of a spending spree are you going to do with offer sheeting everyone? Imagine just July 1st, the Bruins have like 7 offer sheets. We're just waiting to find out all of them get matched. So by the time they get to actual UFA status, like everyone's already been signed. They've just been waiting. I hope that doesn't happen now that I spoke that into existence.
Don Sweeney's like me when I play NHL franchise mode. I'm like, offer sheet, offer sheet, offer sheet.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Exactly. He's like, wait, you didn't turn off the no cap space, the no cap floor. Ty, before we wrap this one up, one quick note: a few guys doing well over at Worlds. Elias Lindholm had a hat trick. I think he's leading all NHLers in points in Worlds. Wow. So he's at the very least he's right up there. I mean, he's got 9 points in the tournament. So he's had a great tournament. Lushmelis obviously had a good run with Latvia. Got props from Sidney Crosby. So he's had a really good year, and you hope that he kind of builds off of that. So definitely a guy worth keeping tabs on. But I think especially looking at a guy like Lindholm, we also won't talk about Jeremy Swayman playing really badly against Norway, whoever it was, but.
Sorry, I have a pod race happening outside my apartment right now. Apparently,
Sabolba, can you bring him in to talk about the offer?
That guy going, wow, and like crashes pod.
He saw what the cost would be to get Matty Nyes, and just all of a sudden, when you look at especially someone like Elias Lindholm, again, how much are you going to glean off of Worlds? Not too much, right? But I do think that you look at the way Elias Lindholm ended the year, the way he's playing right now. You hope that at least kind of is a bit of a springboard into, again, not being a 75-point guy. I don't know if that's the case, but if he can just stay with Pastrnak and be a 60-point good two-way center, he brings value, right? And I think that's just what you're looking for. If you tell me next year your top line is Geeky, Lindholm, and Pastrnak, I feel good about that. And I think especially that means you can just focus a lot of your efforts this offseason on building up that second line. Then I think you're in a good spot for right now. And so I'm at least encouraged by what I've seen from Lindholm of the last 2, 3, 4 months, really, I guess.
Yeah. With Lindholm, like, listen, paying him under $8 million to be a David Pastrnak, embed and produce with him, it's like, okay, I don't love that. But if you can bring that and the other stuff, like, I don't really care. Like, that's why you pay Pastrnak $11 million, is to make other players around him better. And so if he's doing that with Lindholm, I don't care if that's part of his job. And you're going to be a better team for it. So I don't hate that. And yeah, to your point, like, you just feel better about that. You feel better about your overall depth chart, your overall scoring, whatever your balance of your lineup, with Lindholm and Pastrnak together versus, say, what was it last year? It's like the second line was like Husadinov, Lindholm, and Lauko. And it's like, I like all three of those players. I don't love that as my second line though. And so you just feel better about your lineup, your versatility, your overall punch, for games 1 through 82, if you know that is one of your lines. And I think that was a sneaky important way for the season to end, okay, you feel so much better. I mean, at least I do. You feel so much better about Lindholm now that he has some success with David Pastrnak, and now that he has found more of his fit in like the power play than you did in like February, where you're like, oh my God, this is looking bad. Hey, do they have those compliance buyouts? Can we like get one of those? Like, can you bring one of those back just for Boston, please? Boston never used one. Let us use one. But like that's kind of, it is, you feel better about that. And so to see him have a good tournament, especially when he was kind of on the fence, I thought about going to the tournament itself.
Yeah.
I think that's encouraging as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, he is what he is as a player, I think, in terms of, maybe setting reasonable expectations for him. But if he plays shotgun with David Pastrnak and that line is even 80% of what they were down the stretch last year. I mean, I think they were like, I don't have the numbers in front of me, I'm sorry, but like natural stat trick, like Geeky, Pastrnak, and Lindholm, it was like they outscored opponents like 13-5 over that final stretch. Like they were completely tilting the ice in their favor on a crappy team, like in all facets. So if you're able to have him be a 60-point guy that plays good two-way game, and that's just a functioning line, which I don't want to say function. If it's an effective line, which any line with David Pastrnak should be, then I think you're in a good spot. It's not perfect. It's not ideal. I don't think you're winning a cup with that being your configuration, but as you're in this retool process, that is a more than adequate line driving group that can keep you afloat as you're trying to bridge the gap between where these guys are in this new chapter of the Bruins. So, Ty, before we let you go, where can we read your stuff? Where can we hear you? All that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at 985sportshub.com. Also on the air there at 95 Sports Hub. We also have the Sports Hub Underground podcast with myself and Matt Dolph. New episodes every week, so you can find me there. Also social media, just search my name, Ty Anderson, SON, not SEN, and you will find me there. So that's where I am. You are everywhere now the season is over, just based on your Twitter. But tell us where we can find you everywhere, Mr. Connor.
Yes, you can find me over at Fenway, over at Gillette, over at not anymore Celtics now, unfortunately.
Just stay home. Like it's too much driving around.
Hey, dude, beach working for a living. Going oh man, I gotta go to Red Sox games. I didn't get a Fenway Frank though. They do serve them in the media press room, but
do they really? I didn't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like the 7-Eleven roller. They have more than just that. It's not but like they have. You can get like 3 or 4 or 5 glizzies if you wanted to. I went to the little Greek place down the street instead, so I switched things up there. But I walked by, I got that whiff of glizzy air, and I was like, oh shit, this is dangerous. This is tempting. It's like the siren bringing the sailors to the rocks when I walked by. So anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole.
No, I love it. I want a hot dog.
I know. Beyond the fact that you can find me over at Fenway, Gillette, wherever the happenings are in Boston sports, you can follow me over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We have you covered every step of the way this Bruins offseason with looking at offer sheets, free agency, trades, all that good stuff. You can also follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Conor Ryan _93. Ty, thank you once again for coming on Talking Hockey with us. To our fans, once again, please subscribe to our Bruins Ringside YouTube channel. This was episode 330 of Poke the Bear. You fans have a great rest of your week.